468, 472. What does that mean? So I have Adam here from Zippers Performance. He's going to explain that.
So on this lobe here, we've got a lot of data. You got a streak going all the way across there, which is very abnormal.
Okay, so the results are in. We've got the 468 cam, the Chromeworks exhaust, and the Thundermax on your motorcycle, and here's where we're at.
We get a lot of phone calls, tech calls from people in the trade and such that are asking questions about when I put these cams, when I put an aftermarket cam in my engine, should I change my tappets? Well, this particular part, this is the stock cam come out of your engine, and it's a great question because what we've got is we've got the original tappet, we've got the original cam, and when we look at this, we can see that we have all kinds of marks and chatter and lines and streaks on here, which means we are transferring material from the tappet roller to the hard surface of the can lobe, which is not good. So what we want to do is, obviously we're not going to use your cam, we're going to put a new one in there. We're going to use a higher grade lifter. We're not going to be concerned about using the reference to the factory manual about frosted lifters, because we don't want any type of engine part in this engine where we're transferring material from one piece of material to another and then be putting that back in the engine. So on this lobe here, we've got a lot of data. You got a streak going all the way across there, which is very abnormal. Now when we come to this one, we roll around to the base circle, and as we're coming up the flank of the lobe, you can actually see, I have to look at this a little closer on a microscope, but it looks like chatter, and then you can see the spalling all at the top of the lobe and even as it's descending on the closing side, and we have a similar thing right here on the outboard lobe there. So these are all very abnormal and not good for anything relative to being able to control the degradation of the part, because we don't want to have an engine problem, down the road. We want something to go in there and stay in there.
Okay. I like those new 4.5 Chromeworks. Those things are good.
They're nice, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I like that. I am happy with that.
I love those new 4.5
They do sound pretty. They sound good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the results are in. We've got the 468 cam, the Chromeworks exhaust, and the Thundermax on your motorcycle, and here's where we're at. Your motorcycle put down 107 horsepower, and you came in here with 77. So you now have 30 more horsepower. It's going to carry it a little bit further, so your peak horsepower is now at 5,500, which is a very good point. So you're going to be able to run this thing out. The big deal is what you're going to feel the most is this torque gain right here between 2,000 and 3,000. So you're up almost 14 foot-pounds of torque at 2,500. So this whole area right here, you're just going to have instant throttle response. You know, the 468 is designed to really get things moving, so you have nice crisp throttle, but it's no slouch up at the top where you're making power. So the maximum torque is 117 foot-pounds, which is perfect. That's exactly what we would expect out of a 468 and a 107. So,
You know what I really wanted? I just wanted to make over 100 horsepower. That was my goal.
Okay, well, you're over
I'm
it.
in the 100 horsepower
Yeah.
club.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
100
Oh,
horsepower
yeah.
club. You're
Absolutely.
seven over the 100
Yep.
horsepower club.
Yep.
That's good. I'm happy about
And
that.
making 117
Yeah.
foot-pounds of
Yeah,
torque.
I am happy
And
about that.
here's another neat thing. So at 2,000 RPMs, you're making 106.5 foot-pounds of torque. So everywhere you ride, this thing has over 100 foot-pounds at the wheel.
Yeah.
So just what you're going to find is you're going to use less throttle now because just a small amount of throttle is going to get this thing up and going.
Yeah.
So you're going to shift less and just use less throttle.
Yeah, I like
So,
that.
and then if you want to use more throttle, you got a lot more power up top.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
like that.
So you took that stock 107 up to 117 foot-pounds of torque and 104 horsepower.
No, 117 torque and 107 horsepower.
Oh, 117 torque and 107 horsepower.
I gotta remember that 107.
Just from a-
107 making a
Redshift
107
468 cam.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. That's great.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Enjoy it.
You stood out here in the cold and got that thing going. That's good. I appreciate you.
All right. We just installed a Redshift 468 cam on my dad's motorcycle. And here are all the cam numbers, Redshift 468, 472. What does that mean? So I have Adam here from Zippers Performance. He's going to explain that. I'm going to step out of the shot and let him explain what it all means.
So this is your typical Milwaukee 8 cam. This is actually a Redshift 468. We publish a series of numbers, and it's called the open, the close, the center line, duration, TDC, and total lift. What do these actually mean? Well, I'll give you a quick little graph here to show. So the blue is your intake. So as the intake valve opens up, it opens all the way up. This is your peak lift, and then it comes back down and closes. So for us to be able to relate our cam to a stock cam and to everyone else's cams, we have to have a series of measurements that say, where does this valve actually open? Where does it close? And then where are we positioning this lobe in relation to top dead center? So everything that I'm going to tell you is in relation to top dead center. All of the open numbers say at 50 thousandths. And what that means, there's this line, and I'm going to call it an imaginary line. When you first open a valve, you have a hydraulic lifter, you have a push rod, a rocker arm, all these things bend and flex, and it's not an accurate thing for us to say exactly where the valve opens, because you may have a large period of time where the valve train is actually working just to open it the first tiny amount, 5 thousandths. And there's no airflow at this point, but by setting this number at 50 thousandths, it means the valve is actually moving. So whatever you've done to get it to start, you're past that. So at this 50 thousandths number, once the lift hits that point, that's called the intake open. And then at the same point over here, when it comes back down to 50 thousandths, that is our intake close number. So it's how far from open to close and the amount of degrees that is actually your duration. So a 468 has 205 degrees from where it first opens to where it closes. And that's based off of that imaginary number. The exhaust opens over here, and it's 235 degrees from the open point to the close point. We also commonly say center line, and what this is where is the lobe positioned? Where is the peak of the lobe positioned on intake and exhaust? And as cam designers, you can move these around to get different outputs of the engine or to get different sensations when you're riding. So what we've done with the 468 is spent literally a year working on modeling to optimize the center lines, the durations, and then the amount that the valve is open at TDC is very important as well. And that's what we call TDC lift. If you've built an engine or set an engine up, this is a very, very important number because you have to make sure that the valves don't touch each other and they don't touch the piston at this point. The total lift is the amount that the valve actually opens all the way up here at the peak. So all we're doing is we're trying to optimize the dynamics of this cam and optimize how it opens, how it closes on both intake and exhaust, how they relate to one another, and what it takes to get the final result that we're seeking with a cam. So the 468 was designed to be the best bolt-in cam for any of the stock engines, 107, 114, 117, and it works fantastic. And it's really because the cam is designed around the Harley cylinder head. So you have to throw that aspect into it as well. So when you're looking for a cam, you want to make sure, if you don't know what these numbers mean, whoever's working on your motorcycle needs to know what these numbers are so that they can then lead you to the correct part.
Okay.
So why is it called the 468? All of our cam numbers, and it's not just Redshift, most cam companies out there do the same. Our numbers are based off of the total lift. So ours is 470 lift on the intake and the exhaust. The 468 was named that way because we wanted to have one cam that was more torque based and one cam that was more horsepower based. So everything that ends with an 8 in our Milwaukee 8 lineup is our torque cam. If you go to the bigger cams, I have a 548 and a 552, and it's done the same manner. The 548 is set up in a manner where I've moved these around to produce the most torque out of the engine. And if you did a 472 or a 552, because of the 2 on the end, it means it's more horsepower related. In the end, it's just a name, but it's based essentially on the amount of total lift that the valve produces.
Okay, so now I understand. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for taking time to tell me about the 468 cam. We like it. His bike, if you've seen the dyno, if you haven't seen the dyno, check it out in the video. His bike made 107 horsepower and 117 foot-pounds of torque from a Milwaukee 8 107. So, 468 Redshift cam, it definitely does the job. That's it. We're going to end this video here. Check out the other videos in the playlist. We have plenty more coming from Zippers Performance. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
All right.